Take you back to Camilla Cavendish and that quote. You know Camilla very well. Was she right, not so much about Keir being a foot taller, but about the tectonic plates shifting?
Something is moving, something is changing. And look, the last election, there was a lot of words written, column inches filled by people saying there's been a great realignment of UK politics, and tracking that back to Brexit, the Brexit referendum. I've always felt that the last decade has been full of surprising results. There was the wipeout of Labour in Scotland in 2015, the bounce back in 2017, and the number of Tory MPs elected in Scotland. Our politics feels to be looking to find a new shape rather than having settled in a new shape. So yeah, tectonic plates are shifting. And probably the biggest one, the most difficult one for the Conservative Party is, with Brexit done, it really appears to me that the public have decided, they have a mood about public spending. Under the Tories, under Thatcher and Major, it was cut, and they decided the time was to move spending back. They voted for Labour. By the time we were finishing in government, I think the country thought spending had gone too far. They had to move it back. Gordon tries to do a bit of that. Tony tries to do a bit of that. But in the end, the Tories did that. They pulled the spending back. And now I think the public want more public spending. It's interesting that Christian Wakeford's rebellion, on which he was allegedly threatened, was about public spending on free school meals. And I think that's the touch point in politics now. Is it time to bring public spending back to a higher level? And that is more naturally Labour territory. And it's also more naturally Boris Johnson territory than it is the Tory territory.
Yeah, absolutely.
The problem is his balance inside the party is he's at odds with quite a lot of the backbenchers. They saw him as a winner. Now he's not a winner. They may throw him out for his politics as well as his transgressions.
John, let me take you back to that penultimate point, because I think it's absolutely crucial. When you look at the attacks that are made by the Tories on Boris, they are predominantly deep down about him being someone who lets the tax rises go through, the national insurance go through, and very happy to spend. But yeah, that's for them to deal with. This is about a Labour conversation. What I find incredible in that context is that Labour are now telling me that they are going to be the party of business. Rachel said it. Keir has said it, and you say that the public have got an appetite for public spending. I don't think Labour know what their core message is anymore.
Look, I want to go further. I'd like to see Labour saying that we're the party of competitive markets. I'm not for or against business. I'm for competitive markets in which businesses stand or fall on their own 2 feet. And that's the issue is that obviously Boris had his view about business. Labour had an anti-business strategy under Jeremy Corbyn. We're pro-business, pro-enterprise, pro-markets, I hope. And that's because 86% of people who live in Britain work in the private sector. All the debate in politics on the Tory side and the Labour side is conducted as though the 14% who work in the public service are the only workers we should care about. Without competitive markets, without successful business, we wouldn't have jobs, or we wouldn't have taxes to pay for public services. So I think that's really important. If you listen to what Rachel Reeves says, her phrasing is really interesting. She says Boris Johnson's government is a party of high taxes because it is a party of government of low growth. Labour will be a party of high growth and fair taxes. And I think that's where you combine all these things together. You can actually have more spending on public services with a more competitive economy, with a faster growing economy, and with fairer taxation that doesn't always fall on working people. I mean, the number of taxes working people have to pay at the moment, it has gone too far. And I think that's going to be a problem it's going to be a battleground for politics at the next election. Have we pushed the tax burden too far onto workers? Is £3,000 a household going to be too much by the time of the next election? Well, people just go, look, we need a break from this lot.
OK, final question, and it's back to the judgment of Sir Keir Starmer, embracing Christian Wakeford opened the floodgates, as you well know, to the left, saying, well, if he can come in, then so can Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah. And we await the final judgment from Keir on that. But one that worries a lot of people a lot more, both within Labour and within the Conservative Party, is Keir on Barry Gardiner and Chinese money, where Keir basically said, well, he's admitted it and it's in the members' register. That seems outrageous to many people.
It can't be a very intelligent intelligence service if they thought that by bribing Barry Gardner, they could get anything sensible, intelligent, or insightful. To be honest, I mean, I think the charge that the Chinese Communist Party were finding a route to secrets through funding Barry Gardner's office is risible. Anybody who knows Barry would not want to use him as a source for anything. His political judgments are pretty poor. His political performances are pretty poor. And he's been shown, I think his judgment has been shown to be profoundly lacking. But, as the saying goes, an American politician was once attacked for being stupid by a journalist, and he said, there are plenty of stupid people in America, and they deserve to be represented in Congress just like any other group of people. I don't think being a stupid MP should bar you from being an MP. The question of Jeremy Corbyn is he's never going to bring himself to apologise for being the leader who brought the Labour Party into being investigated by the EHRC. The only other party being investigated by the EHRC ever in history with the fascist BNP. So,
John,
I think
fascinating stuff. We have to leave it there. Grateful for that. Welcome back anytime at all. John McTiernan there. The public view on public spending has shifted. They want more, and Labour should be embracing competitive markets, not just claiming to be on the side of a business. I'm delighted now to be joined by another friend of mine, Sir Anthony Seldon, author of a book called The Impossible Office, History of British Prime Ministers, and a great biographer. Anthony, good of you to fit us in. Was Camilla Cavendish right about Keir Starmer at PMQs and the tectonic plates shifting?
I think they're beginning to shift. Yes, I think that he is looking more and more impressive. Of course, it's rather the sun and the moon, and where one wanes, the other waxes. So when the Prime Minister is riding high, that's difficult for the leader of the opposition to do well. But as Boris Johnson is in eclipse at the moment, that's helped Keir Starmer, but so has a growing sense of confidence that leaders need. He just seems to have more persuasiveness. It's still a little bit awkward and mannered, but he does seem to have that confidence, Alistair, and he's got some very impressive team around him, including Rachel Reeves, as discussed.
Anthony, I want to come to both of those points in just a moment. But while we're looking, people on radio won't know it, but folk kind enough to watch us on telly will have just seen Sir Keir very ebullient walking across Parliament Green. But you've written about this stuff, and real tectonic shifts as far as leaders are concerned are Wilson embracing white heat of technology, Kinnock calling out the left, Blair dropping Clause 4. Where's the meat with Starmer?
Well, we're beginning to see it. It's more of a mince meat coming out of the grinder, dollop at a time, rather than a heavy T-bone steak landing on your plate. That said, Harold Wilson, probably the best Labour leader in opposition of all time, came in with a rush in 1963 after a long period with Hugh Gateskill. Is Keir Starmer of the same class as Blair and Harold Wilson? Not yet. He's more in the Kinnock class. Neil Kinnock did so much from 1983 to 1992 to improve Labour's prospects with great courage and tenacity, but also using the right people. He had a great team around him. So I think, Alistair, it's always too early to say in politics, almost until something happens, but he's certainly moving in the right direction. Now, this is the question. Has he peaked too soon? One of two things can happen. Either Boris Johnson declines, as many in his party seem to want, and to do him down because of the factor that John was mentioning, that he's not the kind of Tory, the low tax, low spending Tory leader that they want, or for personal reasons, for reasons of probity and more. So if he goes, there will be a new leader. At the moment, Rishi Sunak is top, but anything can happen in leadership elections. And it would suit Labour for that to be happening sooner rather than later, so the shine can come off it. That's one scenario. Boris Johnson goes. The other is that Boris Johnson recovers. And he is, as we know, repeatedly said, a superb campaigner. He did take the country through Brexit. He has provided adequate to good leadership during the pandemic. There's a lot going for him. He's taken the party to the best landslide victory in 25 years. If he can re-find his mojo, then Keir Starmer could find himself facing either a re-fortified, re-confident Boris Johnson or a new leader. So I do not think that it is yet likely that Labour will win the next general election, but it has edged a lot closer in the last 3 months.
Final point, and you were kind enough to have been listening to what John McTiernan said. I was intrigued by his observation as a key founder of that Labour development process under Tony Blair that you referred to just a moment ago, saying it's not good enough for Labour to claim to be the party of business. If they're to be really credible in Middle England and win elections, they've got to embrace competitive markets, and they're a long way from doing that yet.
Yeah. Well, absolutely right. I mean, where on earth did Jeremy Corbyn think the money was going to come from? You have to have a thriving economy. Britain is now out of the EU. Britain has to forge ahead internationally with its services and with its manufacturing and ensure that it is extraordinarily competitive. It's going to be tough to achieve that. And if Labour isn't convincing about that in the way that Tony Blair was convincing with Gordon Brown about running the economy better, then he will not get the support and the votes and the backing of business that he will need if he is to win the coming general election. So more work, Alistair, to be done in that department, though the direction of travel has been defined.
Fascinating. Anthony, always a pleasure to talk to you, and thanks for giving us so much of your time this Sunday afternoon.